Every time. It's Politics and Parenting, where we talk about politics. We talk about it differently. Jeff, how are you doing today? So weird. All right, so it is Jeff Mayhugh. This is Politics and Parenting, where we talk about politics from the parent's point of view. So stick with me here. It's gonna be a longer pod. I'll break it up into segments for you and mark it when you watch it on YouTube, so you can skip along depending on what you want to hear. But yeah, so this week has been pretty cool. If you noticed, maybe you're like, where's the post? He was putting out a whole bunch of posts, and then this week and last week, it seems like it dwindled a little bit. Doing a lot of podcasts last week. I had cool things that happened recently. I had very flannel dino at Vita Nova, which is wonderful. I love that. A couple of kids read this time, which was great. It's the whole point, right? Encourage kids to read. Even if it's just one, it's a success, right? So that's been awesome. Then Monday, I had my tank talk at Heritage Brewing, and that was fantastic too, because I think I finally got like the concept of this tank talk done. And I told a great story about James Monroe, a bunch of little stories about James Monroe, and then like kind of tying it all together. Each one of those had shaped about a little bit of who he was as a man and as a leader. And I hope the audience walked away with that. I feel like it's going in the right direction, so I'm excited about that. And then this week, man, I've been so busy this week. I haven't been able to like write or record. I've been volunteering at kids gig at Park Valley, and this has been just awesome. Like, it's just such an awesome event. But it's also exhausting. Like, I like forget how much energy I used to have, like as an adult with these kids. Like, I remember I was like that. I was always just bouncing off the walls, like talking. And like, as an adult compared to other adults, I'm kind of like that now. But even me, I'm like, wow, I am so tired. And so, but it's been incredibly rewarding. I'm Jeff Mayhugh with Politics and Parenting. I'm also the very flannel dino. Do you have a kid who loves reading? Or do you have a kid who you want to love reading?
Love my red shoes. I love my red shoes.
Then come read with me, the very flannel dino, on the third Thursday of every month here at Vita Nova from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Each kid that attends, ages 2 through 10, will receive a free book sponsored by Hard Hits Community Branding. Reading is fundamental. All right, so we're going to talk about three things today. Well, three main things today. We're going to talk about my week at church camp. We're going to talk about my anniversary and why I love my wife so much. And we're going to talk about the debate, which took place on my anniversary, which I did not love so much. And it was torture. All right, so the camp was fantastic. I love the... So the first thing I would say is like walk in the morning and sit down, and they've got like, a little breakfast there for the volunteers. And you look around, and what you see is a generation of children who are about ready to like either take their first step or continuing step with Jesus and with leadership and service. And it's a really cool thing to see, right? Like, as an adult, I think there's a lot of turmoil in the world. And I think that we as people sometimes get a little too focused on the bad, and we don't pay enough attention to the good. And so being able to like be there and experience this week has been fantastic. And you realize that most of these kids that are here, or a lot of them, and I hear from them throughout the week, at least for the volunteers, they participated in this at some point in time, right? Like they were once the young ones where all of the adults, all the volunteers did all the work for them to be able to like have this special moment, have this opportunity to with fellowship and a party and water day and a relationship with Jesus, right? Like one generation participated in that, and then as they get older, they start to help the next generation participate in that, and that's just a really awesome thing to see. And I think the church just did a fantastic job. Such a large event, so many volunteers. You want to talk about something that was well organized, well put together. You feel good as a parent, like being able to like go to and like feel comfortable with your kids, because I mean, let's face it, parents sometimes can be a little too clean with their kids. Like, I mean, I'm guilty of that at times, but you, it was just a wonderful event. And I met so many great people and so many like wonderful kids who just, man, just smart as a whip. They're learning things so fast and they're so excited. And man, I hear a lot, and I know, like, I've been in the school system. I volunteered. I know like behavior is a little bit of an issue in our generation's children right now. And we kind of talk about that. And I struggle with it as a parent with, with my kids. I'm not going to lie. But overall, if you're being honest with yourself, being honest with what you see, man, they was just really awesome kids, and it was just a great experience. And again, like my biggest thing is watching the next generation lead, right? Watching those teenagers, those middle schoolers, become small group leaders and take their kids from station to station and give them structure and a little bit of like, you know, order, because let's face it, at a certain age, just kind of this little thing that's just like running around, and you got to be able to. You need a little guidance. We all need a little guidance, right? And to be able to bring them there and to pour back into those kids, it helps grow two generations at one time. And then let's not forget about all the adults at the church who volunteer or, work there. But like, this is a huge undertaking. Like this is something that I think like we need in our communities, like teaching people, you know, how to build a relationship, with Jesus, and also how to lead, how to follow, right? There's a fine balance between leading and following, like one generation, and we'll talk about it when we get to the debate, but like one generation leads and the other follows for a little bit, and then they transfer power peacefully. And like there has to be some sort of understanding if we are to like live as people, and for power to be able to transfer successfully and continue, the mission, right? And if you're a Christian, the mission is, bringing people to Christ. And maybe if you're not a Christian, maybe the mission is human rights, right? Treating each other respectfully. Okay. But there is a mission there, to make the world a better place and to grow and make it safe for our next generation. And if you want that, like if you're people and you're like, hey, I really want the next generation to be like safe and secure and have, um, peace, among men, and women. And I think that it starts with understanding how to build strong relationships, and then pouring, and Barry's talked about this a lot at church lately, is pouring into others, right? And man, it's the thing I try to do. I'm not like, I feel, I feel unworthy, right? I think we all feel unworthy sometimes about pouring into others. And that's why it is difficult, but I want to pour into others. I try to pour in where I feel I can be successful. And, this week was great for me because I was on snack team and I got to, basically talk about a story, talk about, the different, I got to tell the story of the snack. We did different snacks on different days, and they had different meanings. And the first one was like, we had popcorn and the chocolate and gummies, and it was like little chocolate morsels and gummy or fruit snacks, and had all the kids open them up and put them in the bag, and the sweet stuff fall to the bottom. And it's, what is ask the kids, like, what is happening here? And they see it and they recognize it. And I said, what does that represent? What do you think that represents? The sweet things. It represents our sin, right? And how it weighs us down, right? And then the next day we had pretzels and we had marshmallows, and we put those together and we made little barbells. And there's kind of two ways to look at this one, right? It's like, those barbells represent the strength that Jesus gives us to deal with that sin, to deal with that temptation that we struggle with because we're not perfect and we're lucky for it. But you know what else it does? It helps us. What is the other thing? Man, I lost my train of thought. I was so good with the kids. I promise. Oh, I remember. And so the other thing with the barbells was, if you look at it about like the barbell is a tool, it's a weight, right? And it helps you it helps you build muscles. If you lift that weight every single day, you're going to build stronger and stronger muscles. And if you want to build a stronger and stronger relationship with Jesus, you should lift I don't have it in my office, the Bible, right? As you should lift the Bible. You should read it every day. You should be in the Word. And that's another thing that Barry talks about a lot, is being in the Word and reading it every day. And I think it's so important. Okay, so this is great because this joins like two great missions of mine, right? Reading and being a Christian. And if you read the Bible every day, you are practicing your reading skills and you're practicing your Christian skills, I think, as well. And so, if you want to, I say all the time, like, reading's a skill, everything's a skill. The things that you want to be good at, the things you need to be good at to be free, you practice a lot. And that's what I kind of try to teach my kids, right? Like, you got to practice the things that you need. You got to be good at the things you're going to need in life. And you practice this, you invest your time in the things that you love, right? It is another way of looking at it. And you love Jesus, so you invest your time in that. You work out your Bible time, 15 minutes in the morning, right? Like, it doesn't have to be, an arduous activity, just a little bit a day is all you really need. It's the best you can get, he'll provide what you need, right? It's, is kind of the message. But anyways, again, back to the snack. The third day was water day, right? And we had popsicles. And so the snack didn't quite fit in, but the Bible story really fit in, because the Bible story was about the woman at the well and how, we talked about, like, what happens when you jump in water? What's happening today when the water hits you, right? It's splashing. You splash other people, you get splashed. And so what did the woman at the well made a splash, like, she made a splash, but not with water, with the good news of sharing Jesus, right? And so this is cool, because now it's like, all right, you have this problem, you have this help, this love, this relationship with Jesus, and you make it stronger. And that, the strength of his love helps you deal with these problems. Why would you want to keep that to yourself? Like, why would you want to keep that to yourself? You would want to tell everyone that you know. That's why they call it the good news, right? And so, we talk about, like, once you have it, once you understand it, you got to go out and talk about it. You got to help other people. And this doesn't mean, just be like, well, you have to become a Christian. No, you talk to other people about it by bringing it up, not hiding it, sharing your story about what it's done for you in your life, and just modeling what it is to walk with Christ, and to, try to, make the good decisions more than the bad decisions. Try to, be more in his image if you can, and it's difficult. I get you. And, like, when, we don't get this deep in with the kids, right? But it's just really cool. And so back to the snack. Thursday, we made headphones, and with fruit roll-ups, which was more difficult than I anticipated. I had one like the group leaders who like showed me how to do it, which was great because it's funny how kids can figure out those things when you're just like completely baffled. Like it doesn't matter how many books I can read. You know, if you say like use this thing to make this thing, and you didn't give me like a diagram or directions, any like a picture, because it should be easy, right? Like, like you would think I was like, man, I could totally do this. This is easy. And then I'm like, how do I get the fruit roll up to stay? And then the group leaders like wrapped it around the Ritz, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's so simple of a solution. So, anyways, we made headphones. Okay, and so what does the headphones represent? We in our game that we played during snack, it was let it shine, let it not let it shine. It was pictures of kids in situations that are like positive and negative, right? Sharing toys, taking toys, pointing and laughing, making fun of somebody, or eating lunch with somebody. And we talked about like being putting our listening ears on, and hearing if somebody needs um, needs a relationship with Jesus, or is wanting to hear about a relationship with Jesus, or also being models of Jesus and making sure that everyone's invited to the party, right? Like that was the theme of the week. It was kids gig. They had like a big party. Is everyone is invited to the party. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. It doesn't matter your income level, right? It what matters is the relationship with Jesus, and being able to like treat each other with love and respect. And that's why, like, again, so many kids, so like awesome of a event. And yeah, that really they talk about like you got to do things that fill your cup. Like my friends, my good friends are always kind of giving me that advice, and I always think it's just wonderful advice. I don't take it enough, to be honest. I try, but yeah, it was definitely one of those things that filled my cup. I hope I was able to pour into some kids this week, and help guide them. And just little shout out to the people, like the other volunteers, man. Like I felt like snack was an easy gig. The other volunteers just they're awesome. The kids, the other parents, there were so many other parents there, grandparents. It's just really fantastic to see. I know like my kids are just thrilled that I'm there, and I know that I'm just lucky to be able to be there because I know that not everybody can. There was a point in my life where I took my kids to events like this, and I couldn't spend the time there. Man, did it crush me to not be able to be there. And I think it, sometimes, if I'm being real, like my wife doesn't like it. She wants to be there too, and she's been there at some points, and I have been there. It's just kind of like we're all in different seasons all the time, and so it's just my season to be there, and that's really great for me. I appreciate it, and I'm so happy to be able to pour back into those kids and provide that for my family. So, speaking of family, this week was my 10-year anniversary. Okay, I have been married for 10 years to that woman right behind me. Okay, Vanessa. Um, I don't know. I don't know how many, we got local listeners that may know me. We got people that, I don't know me very well. They're just like, hey, this is this guy on the internet that's like talking about politics. And sometimes he talks about parenting, and it's kind of weird, but I think I like it, And so, Vanessa and I, it's my second marriage. We blended our families. She had two boys, 2 and 8, and I had a little girl who was 2 when we got married. We got married in Cancun in 2014. It was memorable for many reasons, and she has, as I yawn to like prevent the tears because I'm such a sap when it comes to stuff like this, is she's just been awesome. And so yesterday was our 10-year wedding anniversary. It also happened to be the first presidential debate, which was just awful. I was dreading it all week. Plus, I was tired from Kids gigs. Like I said, that is exhausting. Kids are awesome. They talk a lot. There's like 8 to 10 of them per group every time. Every 30 minutes, you got a new group. They are talking to you like they've never ever talked to anybody, and it's wonderful, and I loved every second of it, but the moment it was over, I wanted a nap. And so, um, anyways, it was my wife's anniversary, and so, look, I posted an article, and this is the ups and downs of, like, life, right? And I accept the fact that I'm not perfect. I accept the fact that, I can only do what I can do. But I don't know. We all have a little bit of bitterness on our heart. We're all flawed, and you work really hard and you do things and you're like, I don't know, you want wins, right? Like you want to see progress. And I think, as we get to the debate and we talk about like what a president should do and how a president should lead, I think what people want in their day-to-day lives is they want to feel opportunity on the horizon. And when we don't feel opportunity on the horizon, it can be discouraging. And, look, a relationship with Christ can help you through the discouragement, but you're still going to be flawed and you're still going to make mistakes. And so yesterday was my anniversary. Let me tell you about my mistake. So, like I was just tired, man. Like my wife, I thought she was working. She did, it's been busy. And I think that, we are just in a place in our marriage where, just time with each other is really great time alone. Like we don't have to do anything. And so she typically works at the church on Thursday nights. And she did not mention to me, I think it was supposed to be a little bit of a surprise, that she wasn't working. Now, she did tell me a few days before so we could kind of plan, right? I think a lot of it was like up in the air because of, you know, our regular schedule program with the kids and everything. Because sometimes it's like, an anniversary, like you just plan it on a different day, like you just celebrate on a different day. Thursday happened to be a good day for us because my parents watch the kids. She does work at the church, but she requested off, so we were able to spend time together, and we were kind of discussing like what to do. And she came up with this great idea where she wanted to take pictures. She wanted to go to Old Town Manassas and take pictures. And I was really tired. And I don't know. I feel like I haven't got enough wins lately. I guess. I don't know. And I was a little, I was just like, I don't know. I don't really want to do that. And I wasn't like, I wasn't mad or whatever, but I didn't have anything else I wanted to do either. I'm just kind of tired, and it's like, I feel bad because it's like, it's our anniversary. I gotta be a little, I gotta be not tired. I have to give her energy too. I have to give her attention too. I want it, I mean, we all want attention at some point in time in our lives or in our marriage at different points. And, this is one of the days that we should, recognize, celebrate, if you will. And, or at least not just like have a better conversation about it than the way that I handled it when it was just like, I don't really feel like doing anything. And I could tell like immediately, like she was super nice about it, but I was like, I kind of felt bad. I was like, man, she really wanted to take pictures of me. And that's kind of sweet because after 10 years with me, she still wants to take pictures with this old guy, the gray hair and the whatever. I was like, man, that's pretty sweet. And the thing is like, the crazy part about this situation is this is something that I like very much enjoy, and that's the, why do you love your wife? Like, I mean, there's many reasons to love your wife. Why do I love my wife is because I think she brings out the best in me. She pushes me. I love to be comfortable. Everybody loves to be comfortable. And I'm okay with like the fact that I, like to be comfortable. And, she pushes me to be uncomfortable, and I find that I adapt very quickly to that, and I really enjoy the uncomfortableness of, so she had this idea. She wanted to take old pictures. I said no. So I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, okay, how do I realized like I've kind of made a mistake here. This was silly. Why did I say no? It's our anniversary. We have daycare. Like, take advantage of the moment, right? Like, don't let that pass you by just because you're tired. Like, rejuvenate yourself. Like, you can rejuvenate yourself with like love. And so I thought about it, and I messaged her. I was like, hey, let me make it up to you. Let's go to the bistro because I I love the bistro right now, and it's new, and I haven't tried everything on the menu, and it's I don't know, it's easier to get to. I'm like, again, I like to be comfortable. I want my driving route to be easy. I don't want to deal with a lot of traffic. And look, let's be real, she doesn't want to deal with traffic either. And so and plus the food there is just like, man. And so I was like, let's go to the bistro. I got a blank notebook, right? We'll take pictures, we'll write each other poetry. Let me make it up to you, right? Let's have a good time. That's the cool thing is like we can do stuff like that and have like such an amazing time. It doesn't really cost a lot of money, and it's just, I don't know, it's fun. It's things I don't think, other people might go, uh, you know, go to the batting cage, right? Like that would be fun too. I kind of want to take my son to the batting cage, but that costs money, right? But it doesn't take money. It costs money to like take pictures of yourself and like edit them and make funny things about them and write each other poetry. So I was like, hey, let's go to the bistro. Let's do this thing. Look, she's, she forgives me, right? Because ultimately, like, that's what it is. She's now, because here's the thing, she's now on a different plan, okay? Like, she's on a different plan. We're just going to dinner, and she didn't, like, get ready for photos. So this means now I've caused her more work. That's my bad. I don't want to cause anybody more work in the world. We all have enough work. And, but she is a loving, caring wife, and she comes in and she gets herself, ready, and we head off and we go to the bistro. And let me tell you, we had the crab dip for an appetizer, and it was fantastic. And then I got the pork chops, and I'm going to talk about these pork chops as much as I've talked about this chicken parmesan from Giuseppe's. How lucky are we that we have these fantastic restaurants like right here in the Haymarket area? And so this pork chop was fantastic. Like it was just big and juicy. I think it was wrapped in bacon, and it had a bacon jam with bourbon glaze, and it was served with cut potatoes and Brussels sprouts. And I'll be honest, Brussels sprouts came out looking a little differently than I thought, right? Because I'm used to like the new, like kind of fried Brussels sprout style. And I think they do like a different type of braising or whatever. But man, were they tasty! Like they were so good. I ate every last Brussels sprout on my plate. I'd eaten a ton of the pork chop, and like more food than I eat in a typical sitting, right? Like I eat on average like one meal a day. It's not a very big meal. I got a small little stomach because I don't know, like just life happens, people like different things. It's not that big a deal. And I was so full. And my wife, she got the airline chicken, which she's gotten before, with the mac and cheese, which is fantastic as well. And the meal was so good. I was so full. The pork chop was just, I don't think I've ever had a pork chop like that in a restaurant. Like it was that good. And I was really full afterwards. And we were going to take pictures down at the bistro. And now I'm really full. My wife would go, and we walked to the car, and here it is again. I'm about ready to make my second mistake of the night because I'm just such a dope, right? All right, you wanted to take those pictures? I don't really feel like it now. I'm really full. I got changed. You said you wanted to make it up to me. I got changed. We came all the way to the bistro. We had a fantastic dinner. What is stopping you from doing this thing other than the fact that deep down inside, if you're honest with yourself, you're scared. You don't really you worry about the people looking at you taking pictures, or I don't know, you don't like the way you look in pictures. So you're like, I don't really want to do it. And it's not really that hard. Now, we didn't end up writing poetry at dinner because we just had really good conversation, because we don't get a lot of time out as husband and wife, and we run a business together. So it was really great to be able to talk about whatever we wanted to talk about and not have an interruption with the kids. And so there was no time for poetry between each other. We were just like having great life conversation together. And but that was cool. Like, I mean, whatever. We don't write the poetry, but I should do the pictures, right? Like that's what she wanted to do. And now I'm just full. I'm just full. I just want a nap. I'm such an old man. And so I was like, ugh. And she goes, she's so good to me. She goes, do you want to do this? And I go, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to do anything because I'm really full. And I was like, she asked me again. She goes, why don't we do this thing? I don't remember what she said, but she asked me a second time, very patiently, very lovingly. And I said, yeah. Oh, she was specific. She's like, why don't we take a picture right there with that sign? Just one picture. And I was like, I can do that. We're right by this great sign, for I don't remember what it says. I have to pull up the picture. I have to see it. And then she was like, I had so much fun doing it with her. She's like, what if we take a picture over there at the picnic table? I was like, okay, let's do that. And then she's like, hey, what about over there at that building? And so like each time she just asks me again, and it's like the more I get comfortable and the more I have fun with it, right? And I'm setting up the camera. I'm like kind of thinking about like, what do these things look like? What are they gonna look like? What can I do with them when they're done, right? Like I got these pictures. You'll see if you look in the Substack post, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll post it in there. You'll see like I took it and I took my little logo, parental advisory. I made like a little comedy album cover and back. So it's fun. It's fun. I love to have fun. My wife loves to have fun. I am such a Debbie Downer sometimes, and sometimes I just don't want to have fun because I'm full, and then the best part was she and again, and here, okay. Again, I didn't even realize this till just now. Third mistake, okay, is all right, so I'm just about to make my third mistake. We just finished taking the pictures at the bistro, and we've had this great meal and this great conversation, and I had a lot of fun taking the pictures. And we get in the car, and my wife's like, "Do you want to get dessert?" And I thought about it. And she's like, "You know, it would be great if we went to Mayhugh's store and we took some pictures. We should go to Mayhugh's store." Now I'm thinking Mayhew's store in Nokesville on Greenwich. She's thinking at Mayhew's store in New Baltimore next to Effie's. And then she's like, we can get ice cream at Effie's. And I'm like, we're going to go all the way to Nokesville. Then we're going to go all the way to Effie's. This is so long. It's going to take forever. I'm not going to get home. I'm not going to get into bed till like 10 o'clock. It's going to be so late. I don't like to be out of my house after like dark, right? Like I want to be home. Cause that's who I am. And that's who she has to deal with. And, so at first I'm like, that's a really long way to drive. And bless her heart, she's like, the one in New Baltimore? I was like, oh, yeah, that's a lot close. Yeah, we can totally do that. Let's do that. And so we go and we get these awesome pictures and we have, again, a great time. And then we go get ice cream. And let me tell you, I don't do ice cream very often. Well, but when I do, I love it, right? I mean, I absolutely love ice cream. I don't know, just don't do it a lot. And I got vanilla ice cream with nerds on the outside of it, and I'm such a nerd, and I love it, and it was so good. I ate an entire ice cream and cone after eating such a full dinner, and I was so happy that she made me go take those pictures. And I was so happy that she didn't make me. She gave me opportunity. She forgave me, and she gave me opportunity, right? Like that's what like a good partner does, is forgive you when you make mistakes, right? Like you didn't really mean that. That's something else talking inside of you. That's, you're full. You ate too much, dummy. Like better than that. And you forgive that person for making those mistakes, and then you maybe ask them again. Hey, sure. You sure you don't want to do this thing? Hey, let me give you a little bit more information. I think that maybe you're thinking the wrong thing here, right? Let's just talk it out. And it was awesome. It was an awesome anniversary. I had a great night. We got home and went to bed. She made this crazy good reel that made me happy because it had Jeff Magnum's "I Love How You Love Me" in it, which was our song that we danced at our wedding. And yeah, she's just pretty cool, and I had a great night. And then I had to get on Twitter and I had to read about the debate, and I hadn't watched it yet, and I just knew it was going to be way more exhausting than church camp all week with those kids having to watch basically two children debate on national television to be our next president. Ugh, it was bad. The debate did not go well for Biden at all. I think that if you've been reading along at Politics Parenting, you could have foreseen this coming because, as I had said a few weeks ago on my pod, he ain't there, man. And voters have eyes. And now everybody in the United States got a chance to watch him in real time. And their eyes don't lie, man. He ain't there. He ain't the same Joe Biden that he was 4 years ago. And it doesn't really matter how much the establishment, right? I hate using that, like the establishment. There's like 15 establishments, okay? Like that's the problem. Well, that's not really the problem. It's actually kind of the thing, right? Is the different factions. But anyways, there's multiple groups working and they all have interest, and there is a group working to have Biden be reelected, and they did not want you to see that last night. That did not go well, or Thursday night, whatever night it was. So people are calling for Biden to step down. So Matt Lewis wrote, it was yesterday. What's today? I don't know. I don't know what day you're going to listen to it. So Matt Lewis wrote after the debate that Biden should consider dropping out. And he wasn't the only one, right? And he says, if Biden isn't going to drop out, the Democrats should seriously consider pulling the plug. And so he also talks about in the article, the saving grace is that this is a June debate. Yes, it is the saving grace, or it was intentional, right? And what I like to tell people, when you're talking about power groups or power structures or how things work or politics or anything, you have to understand that everything is a faction. Everything's a group. And when a group grows too big, they divide into different factions. And there's always little factions working inside a big faction. So if there is a group that wants Joe Biden to be president, inside of that group, there's another group that doesn't think he can be president and is trying to put somebody else there. And it's possible that that group pushed for a June debate before the convention to unmask Biden so everybody could see, and therefore strengthen their position to move Biden out of the nomination and have an open convention where somebody else comes through. I think this is very likely the strategy here. It would be very smart for the Democrats if that was the strategy. And it would be exactly what America would need if we don't want to end up with Trump Biden. The question becomes then, who do you put in? Like who wins the Democratic nomination if Biden's pulled from the ticket and it's an open convention? How do the rules play? Like who's going to step up? There's a lot of unknowns here. We're in unprecedented territory, right? Like this is for a political science history buff, this is like, all right, election 101. This is back to like, the Pierce nomination, for those who don't know. And again, I compare Biden to Pierce a lot as one of those antebellum compromise presidents. Pierce comes out of nowhere. He's at home. He gets delivery from the mail and he's like, hey, did you know that you were nominated to be president of the United States? He's like, nah, it couldn't have been me. And they're like, no, you're nominated to be president of the United States. I'm paraphrasing the story, but yeah, it's crazy. And we're in a situation where I think that could be it. I mean, Matt Lewis was not the only person calling for Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Walsh was one of the hardcore never Trumpers. If the reason Biden's in office is because of people like Joe Walsh, and Joe Walsh is out there saying you got to get him off the ticket. I mean, again, voters have eyes; they can see, right? And Matt makes a really good point in his article, and it actually, I've actually witnessed this already talking to people in my community about the debate. Anybody that is on the side, they're a Republican, so they don't want Biden, but they also recognize that Trump is not the guy. He's bad guy, right? They recognize that. But they're left with Trump or Biden, so they have to make a choice because that's what the parties have, put on us. And so this debate gave them everything they needed to support Trump, because Trump overall was good. And Matt talks about this. He said things that were just blatantly not true to the untrained ear. If you're not following along, you're not paying attention, you don't realize like how blatantly a lie it was. Because if you're only listening to Trump's side, he says the same thing, right? And he says the same lie over and over again. So it becomes truth to the people that listen to him. And so, but it's not what he said, it is how he said it, right? He said it in a very passive way. Now, if you've followed along here with me, I talk about active communicators, passive communicators. Trump is an active communicator. He actively lies. Okay? That's the thing that he does. But he also he had enough discipline at the debate to deliver it in a very passive manner. So it sounds way more believable. And so Matt wrote, meanwhile, Trump seemed, for Trump, pretty sedate and coherent. And he's right. And really, that's all it takes, right? Like, and that's all it takes to convince the voters who are Republican, who recognize that Trump is a bad guy, to be like, that guy's not even he needs to retire. Like when that minute 12, everybody's talking about minute 12, right? Where Biden just freezes up and then says, we beat Medicare. And I don't know. Bet Medicare, beat Medicare. I can't remember. I didn't write it down. I mean, that's it. And then if you go a little bit deeper, let's look at the abortion answer. Now, this is somewhere where Trump has struggled in the past to answer these questions, okay? And the reason that Trump struggles to answer questions like this is because Trump is not a disciplined person. He probably doesn't, I think he takes the debate prep seriously, but he doesn't take interview prep seriously. So oftentimes he's pretty good at debate, but he's not really great in one-on-one interviews, because I think most of the interviews he gets are friendly media. So he gives is friendly media. So he doesn't feel like he needs to be prepared, and he'll say stupid things. And then his friendly people like Sean Hannity or anybody, whoever his friends are in the media, they'll catch his mistakes and correct them on air for him. Right. I mean, and that's the other thing. Like if you're a Trump supporter, you have to recognize this is the thing that happens. You can't go and say the media is all in for Biden when there's clearly another media that does these things for Trump. If you're not able to recognize this, you're not able to bring people to your side and convince them that this thing is bad, right? Because that's just being a hypocrite. We got to, as citizens, we got to stop being hypocrites. And it's not, I guess in politics, it's not being a hypocrite, it's being partisan, right? It's like, you have to recognize the other guy's faults too. You have to recognize your guy's faults too, the things that he's doing wrong. But anyways, so Trump was overall really good last night. His abortion answer was great. But when you're grading these, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I said, when you're grading this, what you have to grade it on is a curve. Because during this debate, there were two things that were discussed that should not have been talked about in the debate, and any serious presidential candidate or any serious quality president that has ever graced this nation would not have brought up or indulged in. And those two things were Trump and Biden argued over who was the worst president ever. Now, there's already a book called Worst President Ever, and it happens to be James Buchanan. Now, Trump is arguing that it's now Biden, and Biden's arguing now that it's Trump. And guess what? Who cares? Who cares? Why are you talking about this? Stop telling me that the other guy is the worst thing ever to happen in America, and tell me what you're going to do to fix the economy, to help the border, to quell and calm the nerves of Americans, give more opportunity to people so we can grow as a country. Stop talking about how bad the other guy is. And then the other thing was, they talked about their golf games. They talked about their golf games. Now, I saw this on Twitter the night before. I hadn't watched the debate, and I was just like rolling my eyes. And I finally got to that point in the debate, and I was just like, oh my God, it's as bad as I thought it was going to be. I thought people were maybe overreacting. I thought it was like an off-cuff remark. No, they were like literally arguing over this. And here's the thing. So if you are sitting president of the United States or a former president of the United States, and you're debating over who the worst president ever was or who the worst golfer is, guess what? You guys are the two worst presidents of the United States, right? Like that's because only the two worst presidents of the United States would argue about their golf game and who the worst president was. Anybody higher on the list would be like, that's below the dignity of the office. I'm going to rise above that. But no, these guys can't rise above anything. And it's funny, and Matt wrote this in his article too, is Trump comes out and calls Biden a child. And I think that's funny. Now, look, Biden's not a child. Biden is a very old man. Trump is a child. Now, Trump is also a very old man, but he is a child, and Biden is a little childish at times too. But I just thought it was funny. What do we get? But if you grade on a curve, you give Trump an A, which I don't want to do that, but I have to because that's what happened. And you give Biden I'd give him an F. This was like Kennedy Nixon. Nixon had no idea how bad he was going to look on TV. And I'm pretty sure that there was at least a small group inside of the Democrats that knew how bad Biden was going to look on TV and was like, put him out there before the convention. It's really important we get him before the convention. So let's talk a little bit more about the debate in some of like the policy things that they were talking about. So as I mentioned, Trump totally dominated Biden on the abortion question. His answer was solid, textbook understanding of what the plan was for Roe, understanding. Like, here's my thing is Biden says Roe was law for 30 plus years or whatever the years were. And that's not true. That is 100% untruth. Roe was not law. Roe was a Supreme Court decision. The Congress failed to make it a law. Congress failed to legislate at all on the issue, and it ended up getting overturned because it wasn't law. It's not the Supreme Court's job to write law. The legislative branch of the government writes the law. And for Biden to say that it was law is just not true. And if you are pro-choice or pro-abortion, the only way to get what you want done and to make it like permanent in the country is to work within the legislative body of the government. And what the Republicans and the Supreme Court decision does is it puts that legislative body down to the state republics, out of the federal republic, because it's not the federal republic's job to decide everything for the states. And Trump did a really good job of explaining that to people and saying, look, we nominated judges. They ruled on this. They overturned it. They kicked it back down to the states. It did not ban abortion in all of America. It just made it so now the states decide. And there has been different states deciding different ways on the issue. And that's how America works. That's the republics. That's the federal republic or the state republics working inside the federal republics. That's great. And like I said, Trump did a much better job talking about this than Biden did, mainly because Biden straight up just lied about it. If you're Joe Biden, we could say, hey, look, Democrats, you want Roe to be the law of the land, but you failed. You didn't. I was in Congress for forever, and I didn't write any laws on it. So we need to understand that this has happened, and we got to work at the legislative body to change it. Now, they shouldn't be doing that in the federal government. they should be having those legislative arguments at the state level, which they are. They're already having, right? And Biden could just talk about those and what maybe the Democrats are doing at the state level for their constituents. But he didn't. He went out the other way. And this is the reason that people don't like Biden. This is the reason that people don't like the Democrats, is because it's not like everybody lies. Everybody lies in the political sphere, because it's impossible to tell 100% of the truth all the time. And the Democrats just make a decision that they want to decide for people, and they will find a way to make government do what they think people want. And that is, and I've said this before, that's a Federalist line of thinking. If we go back to the founding, it was the Federalists that wanted to use the courts and the executive branch to dictate. And it was the Republicans who wanted to use the state republics and the Congress to write legislation and run the country. And it's been an ongoing battle, of how we believe government should work. The difference between the Federalists at the founding and the Democrats now is the Federalists at the founding were honest. They were like, yeah, we're trying to do this thing. And the Democrats now pretend like it is the thing that they're allowed to do. Now, you can make the argument like things changed the Wilsonian way. And yeah, that's possible, but that other information is still out there. We can still read about it and study it and understand how it should work. We don't have to do things the way that people did 20 years ago or 100 years ago. We could do things the way they did them 150, or we could do things in a way that we understand how it was founded and the foundation of it, and then build from there. I think that's kind of the idea. But anyways, let's get back to the debate. The border. So again, things that Trump does here, and it makes it hard for, like, let's say you're an anti-Trumper, a never Trumper or whatever, and you're watching Biden, you're like, I can't do this. And then Trump comes on and he says, we had the safest border ever when I was president. You go, well, no. What does that even mean? Why are you even saying that? Like, I can't take you seriously as a leader. Again, like, I don't care. Nothing was great in 2020, or like in 2016 to 2020. Like, nothing was great. You told us it was great, but it wasn't great. We were at each other's throats, and we're at each other's throats now. Like, the border being safe. I remember constant fights about the border. And guess what? What didn't get done while Trump was president? Any coherent immigration policy. They built kind of a wall, little pieces of wall, right, in places, but like they were not successful at all. And don't sit here and tell me that the sky is purple when it's very much blue, like. So he also says, and Federalist line of thinking, although I think there's maybe a little bit more argument to be made here about the executive's position of power in this, but Trump says that he doesn't need legislation to act on the border, and Biden says that he does. Again, back to the Democrats. The Democrats don't really think they need legislation to get anything done. It's executive orders in court cases, and they dictate, right? Whatever the majority, whatever they believe is the right thing to do, they'll find a way to get it done. They don't want to do anything on it. That's the truth, and they're not saying it. And the reality is, you do need legislation on it, and Trump is wrong as well. Now, there are things the executive could do in a situation like this, because it becomes an issue of national security, right? Trump has an obligation to protect all of the states of the republic, and if there are states along the border that feels like they're in trouble because of this, Trump should be able to do something. Now, it should be temporary, and it shouldn't be too extreme, because it's not, and we're not at war, right? We're not at war at the border, but he should have the authority to do something. But if you really want to solve the problem, you have to write legislation. You have to understand what the real issue is, and you've got to be knowledgeable in that aspect. And Trump, Biden, them, right? They don't talk about it. They just point fingers. About who is worse, and it's not serious. And the other thing, Trump Trump pulls on the heartstrings when he talks about the border. And this is a common political, I don't want to say it's a trick. I mean, it's hard when you're telling an individual story. Sometimes you have to boil things down to an individual story to get people to understand. I just think that, and again, in a case with the border in this situation, this is not the time to do that. This is not being a serious leader. Whoever's guiding Trump, like, there's much better ways. What Americans want is answers. Okay, they're tired of hearing about the problems. Okay, we get it. The border's a mess. We believe you. You don't have to pull on my heartstrings and tell me the story about the people being murdered. Like, okay, we're all on that same level now. What are you going to do to fix it? How are you, as president, going to get a Congress that's divided to come together to fix this very serious issue? And the reality is, neither Trump or Biden know how to fix the problem. Neither Trump nor Biden have the capability to lead a divided Congress to find a solution to this very complex problem. And that is a problem for American citizens. And it was on full display for America and the world to see at the debate. The real problem with immigration is representation, okay? The real problem is representation. The fact that we have a capped house encourages a group inside the government to allow people in so they can be counted on the census without giving voter rights, which increases their representative power in their states. Okay. That's the problem with immigration. And that's why we can't get immigration done, because there is incentive for a group of legislators not to do it. Because if they did, they might lose their job, and they don't want to lose their job. And when you have two presidential candidates pointing the finger at somebody else, and neither one of them is talking about the real problem, you can guarantee that both of their factions are benefiting from it. And the people that lose are American citizens. So let's talk about foreign policy. They came out of the gate saying that the moderators, Tapper and oh my goodness, I can picture her face. I can't remember her name. I'm so sorry. Russia wants territory and Ukraine to abandon the being in NATO in order to stop the war. And they asked Trump if he will support that. And Trump basically says, and again, this is like hyperbole and setting expectations so high that you as a leader probably can't meet them unless you've already done something pretty sketchy underneath the surface. And that is, he says that he'll have if he gets elected in November, by the time he takes office in January, he'll already have the war settled between Russia and Ukraine. He says that. How is he going to do that? I have no idea. Is he going to do that by just agreeing to what Putin says? Does he already have a deal with Putin? Has he been in contact with him? Has his team been in contact with him? Are they working foreign policy as a separate entity in the United States? I mean, is this Jefferson, right? Like, is Trump acting like Jefferson here? I don't know. What I would like to hear is, I would like to hear a plan, and Biden gives us his plan, the Democrats' plan, and it's what I'll say is this is more, I think the majority of America is on this side of the aisle right now. Now, there's always a faction that doesn't want war, and war is bad, and I don't want war either. I don't think anybody wants war. Now, war is a complex thing. You can't just make war not happen, unfortunately. There are things that you can do as leaders to prevent war, and there are things that you can do to exacerbate war. And I think that right now we have two leaders that do kind of both of those things. They don't know what they're doing. One of the things you can do to limit war is to have a coherent plan from administration to administration. But the problem is, if that plan's not good, then you're in war. And Biden's plan and the Democrats' plan is to give Ukraine weapons. Now, Trump points at it and says, you're giving them money. And Biden says, we're not giving them the money, we're giving them weapons. Congress is allocating money, and we are paying that money to American companies who are making weapons, and we are shipping the weapons so they can defend themselves. I don't think that makes a lot of Americans feel better, like, again, you're just you're just supporting war. You're just like, okay, but where's the end? How are you going to stop? Just giving Ukraine the weapons doesn't mean they're going to win the war. It doesn't mean they're going to be able to defend themselves. And and this is the thing, like, why should we support Ukraine? Why should we, if you're on the other side, why should you support Russia, right? Like, if you're Trump and you're going to just agree to Putin's demands, why? Like, I think what Americans need to understand is why. And our leaders aren't really telling us. They just kind of keep telling us this is what we should do. And I know there's a lot of stuff out there on, Ukraine and, being an ally and whatnot. And I think if you make deals, it's important to back them up. But I think we need to do a better job we need we need a Monroe Doctrine. Like, we need an understanding of when the United States should be involved and when the United States shouldn't be involved. And we need a plan for after we are involved. Historically, we get involved in skirmishes and we leave, and there's a mess afterwards. And then so the skirmishes happen again. And this seems to be a repeating thing. And I think that we just need to have more of a coherent foreign policy strategy. I was, at my Tank Talk recently, we talked about James Monroe and the Monroe Doctrine, and it was a coherent foreign policy, statement that made sense for America, that allowed the other nations in the world to know what we were going to do. And, I think part of that is with NATO, but look, man, generations change, people change, and things need to be updated. You need to have new talks and new debates. And when it comes to Russia and Ukraine and all of that, I think the United States needs to work on their internal division if they really are going to focus on foreign policy, right? It's the idea of, like, don't throw stones in a glass house. You need to pick up your mess before you go pick up somebody else's mess. And after we work on ourselves just a little bit, and we need the next step is to figure out, like, how are we going to deal with the rest of the world, because it is everybody, there's a power vacuum, if you will, right? Everybody's grasping for just a little bit more power, and this happens in history. And so, how are you going to deal with that, America? Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and it can't be just give weapons and give in to demands. There has to be a reason of why we do the things that we do, and the American people need to know those. And how it should work is through the representatives in Congress. It's Congress's job to declare war, to fund war, to do all these things. And I care very little. I mean, I do care what the president of the United States says on this, because it is important. But when it comes to these guys, I care very little. I want Congress to be more involved. I want Congress to communicate better with the people in the community, because that's really the only way to be successful. You have to get a majority of your population on board with what you're doing, whether it's pro or against or wherever you're going. You need to get a majority of your population on board with it if you're going to be successful. And the only way to do that is in small groups, talking to people. And that's what the House of Representatives, that's what Congress does. So let's talk a little bit about democracy. You know how frustrating it is that democracy was a topic that is just like, did you read what I wrote? If you're following along, did you read what I wrote for my fictional speech? I did not write about democracy. I wrote about the Republic. Okay. So when they're talking about democracy, they're talking about January 6th. They're talking about the peaceful transfer of power. What they really should be talking about is the Republic. Okay. How it divides, separates, and balances power. How that power is divested to citizens who elect representatives to go to a body and represent them, debate for them, and write law for them. And how that Republican structure doesn't really exist in America right now, because power is concentrated into the parties. You get two choices. You vote for your party or you vote for the other party. They've decided their policy. They don't debate with each other. They only debate in their circles. And they try to win elections to advance their interest. They try to consolidate the executive, judicial, and legislative bodies into one. That's anti-democratic. That's anti-democratic, flat out. That's where democracy is dying, and nobody is talking about it. Everybody is talking about, Trump and how, he didn't have the peaceful transfer of power. And look, I'm not here to tell you that what he did was right and that he is somehow a good guy in the story. He's not. He's a bad guy. Okay. He is what happens when power is spoiled. Okay. For generations, he's the type of leader that it lifts up as either a counterbalance to something else bad or as just the opportunist who's able to see the flaws in the system and take advantage. Trump talks about all the time about how the system is rigged, but the system is actually spoiled, Trump. It's spoiled. And if you study politics, you'd understand this. But he knows that he calls it rigged because he knows it's rigged because he's done it and he's doing it. Okay. And it's a spoils system that allows him to do it. And he's calling it out like, this is what an active liar does. They're like, look at all these other people doing this bad thing. Meanwhile, they are doing the bad thing. Okay. And if you want, to give a little bit of background here, a spoil system, it started in the early 1800s, very shortly after we were founded, during the Jefferson's administration. Thomas McKean in Pennsylvania started to concentrate. He started to use executive patronage to concentrate power into the governorship and dominate the legislature. And then from that point forward, we see spoils grow in America. It grows in Pennsylvania. It grows in New York. And then, through New York, George Clinton, Martin Van Buren, President Andrew Jackson. Okay. Now, other people use spoils. James Monroe used spoils. John Quincy Adams used spoils. Everybody uses spoils. Spoils is something that's going to happen in a Republican structure. There's always a line. There's always rules that get changed and broken and maneuvered around. And sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. Sometimes it's just trying to solve a problem. There are lots of reasons why this stuff happens. But the spoils over time get spoiled. It leads to incompetent people being in office who are yes men, who do what the power above them tells them to do. And they end up representing a small group of interest in the country. This is what happened during the Gilded Age. This is what happened during the antebellum period. And it's what's happening right now. And instead of talking about saving democracy at the debate, Trump and Biden should be talking about Republican government. The thing is like, why is America great? Why is America great? That's the question that Donald Trump rode down the escalator and asked everybody else. He said, let's make America great again. Okay, how do you do that? What makes America great? The answer is Republican government. If you were to ask anyone in the world in the 1800s, the early 1800s, what makes America great? They would have told you Republican government. Okay, that's what happened all around us. We were a beacon of liberty for the rest of the world, and everyone was trying to throw off monarchical rule. The South America saw what we did with the British. The French saw what we did with the British. And in South America, and I wrote about this guy, Simón Bolívar, he liberated Venezuela, New Granada, Panama, a couple other countries I can't remember off the top of my head, and he formed them together in a republic. It was his goal. He admired George Washington. He studied Enlightenment philosophy, okay? He understood that for freedom to flourish, it has to have a government that allows it to flourish, okay? And he believed, as did our founders, that Republican government was the structure to do this. And look, they were right, okay? Freedom has flourished. Progress has happened. Have we had mistakes along the way? Yeah. Have we, fought back and forth and have problems? Yeah, sure. But you know what we haven't done? We haven't destroyed each other. Okay, we're still around because, as I wrote, Republican government gives you, as a citizen, as a people, as a country, an opportunity to reform yourselves when you get off the rails, okay? And it does this because it has so many checks and balances. It prevents the concentration of power. A spoils system undermines that, okay? A spoils system is what happened to the South American republics over and over again. America, ends up freeing Cuba from Spain during the McKinley administration, okay? Well, why were we in war with Cuba? Well, Cuba had freed itself during the Monroe administration or revolutions over and over again. I believe Monroe administration and then again in the Polk administration, Cuba was constantly fighting a revolution to free itself, but constantly couldn't do it because the Republican governments weren't strong enough. They were infected with spoils, okay? And in a little bit in our way, we were infected with spoils too because we went to Cuba. Teddy Roosevelt went to Cuba to free Cuban people. Other people might have went to Cuba for other reasons, right? And that's what happens when you have a spoiled system of power. Now, the great thing about America is the fact that we've always had leaders step up and help correct that. They talk about the right thing. The problem is right around the early 1900s, around that Wilsonian era, people stopped talking about Republican government. And that's the problem. Because, look, you cannot save democracy, okay, if you are not talking about Republican government. Because the only way that democracy works is in a republic. Because if you strip away the republic and you boil it down, you've got either mob rule or where we're at now, you've got two choices. You have funneled the people's voice into two parties, and those parties give us our options. That's not real democracy. Real democracy is opportunity. Real democracy is choice, and you find that in the legislative body in the House of Representatives with an extended sphere of power. And as I mentioned many times, we capped the House. We limited that power. The population has grown. The choice has been limited. That has allowed a spoil system to take root. That's allowed a party system to take control. That has limited the people's opportunity. It's limited the people's choice. And we are struggling through it right now. And so, do you feel like you have a choice? Do you think your voice is heard right now? Is democracy working? Not really, because we have Trump and Biden again. Nobody wants Trump and Biden, yet that's who we got. Is democracy working? Is that the democracy we want? Is that the democracy worth saving? No. What we need to focus on is the republic, okay? We have to focus on Republican government. We need to talk about reform. In every circumstance right now, of everything that's going on, the problem is Congress, not the presidency, okay? As bad as Trump are, they're still not as bad as Congress. And Congress gets away with it because we're all talking about the presidency. They have all that power. Well, they have that power because Congress has given it to them. They have that power because Congress is too lazy to exercise their responsibilities. And that's a problem for people. A quality executive would recognize that. We've had a lot of Supreme Court cases come down recently, and Chevron just came down yesterday. And I won't go into it. I'll do a whole separate pod on that one. But in every circumstance, the Supreme Court right now is pointing the finger at Congress. They keep on saying, Congress, this is your job. You were supposed to do this thing. You can't keep on kicking it to the executive. You can't keep on kicking it to the courts. You have to write law. You have to do this stuff. Congress has abdicated its responsibility. It's supposed to expand with the population. It got too complicated, so they write a law so they don't have to anymore. They just stopped doing it. It was very important. It was a fundamental principle of our Republican government, and our Congress in the early 1900s was like, this is hard. The Chevron case, right? It's like, this is a lot of work. There's not enough people in Congress to do this stuff. We need to outsource this to another group. Let's outsource it to the administrative state. Yeah, we'll do that. No, you're supposed to do it yourself. The courts are like, no, you need to do that yourself. And so if we want to solve our problems, if we want to save democracy, we have to focus on the republic. Focus on the republic is to focus on Congress. That's where our Republican power lies. Now, to the J6 stuff, right? Trump says he defends himself by saying that he was never told of the attack, but he also says that he knew it was coming and he could feel it. Okay, so here's my question. Nobody ever told you about the attack. Oh, but by the way, he also says that he offered National Guard to Pelosi and Pelosi turned it down. So he was never told about the attack, but when he was told about the attack, he offered the National Guard, but he was turned down. But he also knew it was coming way beforehand. Here's my question. If you knew this was going to happen, Trump, which you just said that you did, why'd you still have the rally? Why'd you still tell people to march to the Capitol if you knew this was going to happen, if you could feel it? As a leader, don't you have a responsibility to protect those people that you lead? Those people are inside the Capitol. That's your Congress, man. Those are our people. That's the American leadership. And you just sent a mob that you believed was about to attack them because you could feel it. You sent them there anyways. And then while they were attacking, you were in your house, that beautiful White House that the people pay for. And you were watching on TV and you did very little. You had people in your own party messaging you, asking you to act. And I've told this story before. When after the Cuban Missile Crisis, after Kennedy and his brother and his administration stared down Russia, they were having a conversation and they said, we had to. If the American people knew that they were going to put nukes on our doorstep and we did nothing, we should be impeached. It's our constitutional responsibility to defend and protect this country. And in this situation, Donald Trump, in his own words, could feel this coming. He pushed it along, and then he sat and did nothing to stop it. And that is what a madman grasping for power does. And the thing is Trump is not the thing that you need to worry about if he's successful. It's the next guy that takes advantage of all these things that he's created, all this power that he concentrates into, that has chipped away at the peaceful transfer of power. And look, I'm going to go at Biden for this one too, because the peaceful transfer of power is not the precedent that Washington set by walking away after 2 terms. It's the precedent that Washington set that once he wasn't useful anymore, and he knew he wasn't useful anymore, he walked away. And you could say, well, Washington was still useful. He could have still been useful. Yeah, maybe. But he knew that it was time for another generation to take leadership. You can't hold power forever. You can't hold power for too long. Otherwise, you become the oppressor. You have to allow other people a chance at the pie. And Biden has been in office, and there are Democrats and Republicans in the Senate and Congress that are grasping to power. They do not appreciate the peaceful transfer of power is walking away on your own, okay? It is acknowledging that the people want somebody else. Stop pretending because you get elected in your district that the people of your district want you. No, you are using power to keep that job, and you know it. That's how a spoil system works, okay? And why are there so many people that are willing to look the other way when it comes to Trump and all of these really audacious power grabs that he makes? Is because the other side won't let go of power either. Republican or Democrat, because remember, most Trump supporters are not like hardcore Republicans or hardcore Democrats. They're people that feel disenfranchised by a system of spoiled power. And he's just a way to break the power structure. He's the incendiary. They're trying to burn it all down, right? Not literally, hopefully not literally, but metaphorically. And if you're the other side, you can, back to Civil War antebellum period, John C. Calhoun, he says, meet power with power. If Trump is going to do this thing, we have to go at him. Now let's use the courts to make him a convicted felon because that's going to weaken him. Did it weaken him? Or did it make him stronger? Did it embolden his supporters more? The thing is we are living in a time of spoiled power with corrupted, incompetent leaders who are making bad political maneuvers. And that ain't good. That ain't good for anybody. Trump compliments Tim Scott. Why does this matter? I think it matters because the way that Trump talks, and I hinted on this earlier, is he says the same thing over and over again that may or may not be true, and then it becomes true to the people that are listening to him. And what Trump wants to be top dog. Trump is the most important person in the room all the time, and he wants everybody to know it. And so if you're going to pick somebody to be your vice president, almost all of those people at some point in time have disagreed with you, and you have to make sure that you're the one lifting them up. So what do you start to do if you're Trump? You start to compliment them in areas where people can hear you complimenting them. And Trump does this last night with Tim Scott. He's the only person that's on that vice president list that he complimented last night in the debate. And I think he also mentioned that the vice president would be at the debate. I don't know. Was Scott there? Not sure. Are people talking about Youngkin and whatnot? I don't think Youngkin is the guy. You have to ask yourself in a situation like this, what does Youngkin bring to the ticket? Does he bring Virginia? Do they need Virginia? What else does he bring besides Virginia? I think some of the other guys, you're looking at Vance. What does Vance bring? Maybe some loyalty. Ohio. Some people might say that he brings the whole Rust Belt area. I don't think he does. I think he's too divisive. I think you're still going to struggle with Michigan and Wisconsin, even with Vance. I think Scott brings you two factions that are spread out through the Electoral College, which could help you bring multiple states. And those two factions are the Never Trumpers, okay, and the Black vote, right? And well, you can't just do that. That's not fair. Well, here's the thing. And we've seen this in polls recently. Trump is gaining in the Black vote already. And this is because voters have eyes, and Joe Biden doesn't look like Joe Biden. And so, rational people are going, maybe they have been lying to me all this time. And by bringing Scott, you bring somebody who I think can communicate to so many different groups. And again, bringing those factions in all the different states of the Electoral College strengthen your opportunity to win multiple states, not just a few states. And right now, what a lot of Never Trumpers and, Democrats that have, Black Democrats or Black voters that have voted Democrat for a really long time, but maybe aren't, maybe they're losing a grip on that. What they're looking for is an opportunity to abandon Biden. And I think Tim Scott gives more people an opportunity to abandon Biden than J.D. Vance or Glenn Youngkin or a lot of people. I think Glenn Youngkin, if you're going to be, Glenn Youngkin maybe brings the Never Trump crowd. Maybe he brings the Haley crowd with him. Maybe. But I think that faction splits no matter what. I think Scott has an opportunity to bring that crowd, part of it, and other crowds. And he also gives, I think Trump would be more comfortable with Tim Scott because he doesn't really know Glenn Youngkin. And let's face it, Trump wants a guy who's loyal to him. And I don't know if Glenn Youngkin is the guy to be loyal to Donald Trump because I don't know. I think Youngkin has his own ambitions, and he should figure out what he's going to do after whatever. So, yeah, I think Tim Scott's going to be his vice president right now, but that could change. Who knows? So before I get out of here, just a couple things. Towards the end of the debate, obviously, they debated about who was the worst president. Trump and Biden are calling each other liars constantly. They're arguing over their golf game. Trump is asked if he will support the nominee, who are the winner, and he says, yeah, sure, as long as it's free and fair. Okay, cool. Who decides it's free and fair? Like the question was, after all legal things are exhausted, will you accept it? And he says, yeah, sure, if it was free and fair. Okay, cool. So if you disagree with the cases, that means you're not going to accept it. That's exactly what happened last time. That's exactly why the Never Trump crowd is so scared of Trump becoming president again or running for president, because now if you don't accept the nomination, and now there's a group of people that thinks that the government usurped power, okay, and now you create a whole different mess. We don't need an 1877 compromise. Like, we're going to end up with one, but we don't need it. And so, and then the last two things is these guys use fear to drive. If you're a citizen out there and you voted for either one of these guys or you support either one of these guys, you are being driven by fear. Both Trump and Biden are constantly driving with fear. At the end of the debate, it was on display. Trump says Biden is driving us to World War III. Biden says, no, it's Trump driving us to World War III. And guess what? If you have both of the guys who are running for president pointing the finger at who's driving us to World War III, you can bet that World War III is already in the works somewhere. And they both know it and can't do anything to stop it. And that's not good for us. Maybe if we had somebody else on the debate stage, maybe that would be good. So, anywho, that was my long, rambling pod on the debate. I hope you enjoyed my story about church camp and my anniversary. And, I don't know if you enjoyed the debate stuff. It was torture for me. I can't believe I watched that whole thing. And and then talked about it. But I hope you enjoyed. And if you can follow me on Twitter at jmayhew28. You can follow me on Instagram at jmayhew. You can subscribe at politicsandparenting.com. Get all of this delivered straight to your email box. You can like or share Facebook, Twitter. You can follow on Spotify and Apple and YouTube. And as always, peace and love.